Welcome back to the call slip.
My name's Bryce.
And I'm Haley. This week on the call slip, we read The Mountain in the Sea. So, summary of the book. Humankind discovers intelligent life in an octopus species with its own language and culture and sets off a high-stakes global competition to dominate the future. The transnational tech corporation Dynama has sealed off a remote Kondau archipelago where a species of octopus has been discovered that may have developed its own language and culture. The marine biologist, Dr. Ha, who has spent her life researching cephalopod intelligence, will do anything for a chance to study them. She travels to the island to join Dynama's team, a battle-scarred security agent and the world's first and possibly last android. The octopuses hold the key to the unprecedented breakthroughs in extra-human intelligence. As Dr. Ha struggles to communicate with the newly discovered species, forces larger than Dynama close in to seize the octopuses for themselves. But no one has yet asked the octopuses what they think or what they might think about it.
Okay. First, let's start with what would you give the rating of this book?
Although I really do like sci-fi, point blank, 2 out of 5. My opinion. You?
I guess probably the same. I do really love science fiction, but I just didn't really like this one very much. So before we get too far into this, we just wanted to give a disclaimer.
Spoilers are ahead. If you want to read this book, don't listen. If you don't care,
Well, if you don't care to read it,
If
and
you don't care to
want
read it
to be able to talk about it later with your friends,
Yeah.
then go right ahead. We're gonna talk pretty extensively about it.
I will say I like us giving the rating before we say that, though, because then like people could be like, oh well, maybe they gave it a 2 or 5 out of 5 or
Yeah,
whatever.
maybe I don't want to read
Maybe
it
I don't
anymore.
want to read it anymore.
Well, I feel bad because what did you say it won an award for?
Oh yes, winner of the 2023 Locus Award for Best First Novel, and it was a finalist for the Nebula Award and the Los Angeles Times Ray Bradbury Prize. And Blake Crouch, the author of Upgrade and Dark Matter, he really loved it. He said it was gorgeously written, unput-downable gem of a novel. He's one of the most exciting new voices he's read in years. I mean, I guess it just wasn't my cup of tea. I did like some aspects of the story. I started reading it, and then I switched over to listening to it, and I felt it was hard to follow in the Audible book.
Really?
It kind of just switched from
Yeah.
it like you would it wouldn't I mean there were 3 storylines that were going at the same time, so I feel like it was just it wouldn't be like this person's point of view. It would just be like, and we're back to over here, and it was like, wait a second, but you just spent 4 chapters here, and then it's only maybe 1 chapter in that storyline and then goes back to a different storyline.
Yeah, and it takes you a couple of sentences in before it drops a name, so you realize what's going on. I didn't particularly like it because I'm not as big of a fan of robots. I don't
Artificial
particularly,
intelligence.
yeah, that's not really something that really just grabs my interest.
I feel like the back of the book was more deceiving than what it was actually about. You know, it's talking about
Yeah.
artificial life forms, but about how this octopus colony has grown in this city or this archipelago. And then, you know, you start the book and you're going along and you meet this doctor, and then she's talking about her research that she's done, and then all of a sudden it goes to like this slave ship.
Yeah,
And I'm
someone's
just
been-
like-
someone's been taken.
Yeah, someone's been taken. He's living on this slave ship, collecting fish in the ocean, and then the whole boat is an AI boat. And it talks about how like the ship used to be completely AI, but then the salt water and sea air wasn't good for the robots, so it was breaking down. So it went back to human slaves where they were easier to take care of than robots.
Well, they
And-
had people
yeah,
on the ship that were making the slaves do the job.
yeah,
But, I mean, you find out later on in the book that there was a mutiny, and the slaves all overthrew their captors, essentially, and then the ship was the only one left, but they couldn't get into the main brain
yeah.
of the AI machine. And so, like, they then have to figure out, well, how am I going to get food? Because the ship is the one that gives them food.
Yep.
So, it was, that part, I think, was really interesting.
Yes.
That part of the story?
That was my favorite. The slave ship was my favorite storyline. It was, oh gosh, Iko. I'm not entirely sure how to say his name. And
I can't
Sun.
remember.
We meet Sun and Iko in that. Yeah, I think it was just interesting to learn Aiko's background and then Sun's background, because the book does start off with Sun's ex-business partner. Do you remember that?
No.
So the first like chapter is this lady or like journalist who is interviewing this guy named Lawrence, who talks about him and his coworker or business partner's son, who are originally from this island that they go to, and then they are like a diving company that take these people out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so like that was him originally.
All right. Yes.
That was originally Sun's like whole arc. So it kind of like comes around in the beginning. Or I guess it starts and then you meet Sun later, and how like this character Lawrence will like never go back to the sea because he's
traumatized.
He's traumatized by this guy that they took out that like essentially just died because of these octopuses that are there. And then you never really hear about Lawrence ever again. You meet Sun, who is his business partner, who is a slave now on this ship, who is trying to get this AI generated ship back to the place where he was or he lived, because
no, they just want to make it to shore.
They just want to make it to shore in general
get
and
off the
ship, but they end up back in his hometown of Kondao and the archipelago and these robot things with
yeah, I mean, as you go along, you really don't know how each of, is it 3 storylines?
Yeah,
technically?
yeah, you've got the doctor,
Dr. Ha.
Then you have Aiko and Sun. I guess they were one both on the slave ship, and then another hacker named Rustem, I believe.
Yeah,
his is a very short storyline.
You don't see him as much.
You don't see him as much. Maybe out of the, I don't even remember how many chapters the book was, but it was not a lot. Maybe not even a quarter of the book was about him. It's more of just what he has, I guess, accomplished in his life.
Yeah, I mean, like, once you get to the end of the book, I think, the last, like, 2 or 3 chapters, it just kind of brings it all full circle.
Yeah.
And then it just, like, kind of abruptly ends, I feel like. But I guess they kind of talk about everything they want to talk about before that. How did you feel about the octopus part? Because I know you like sea creatures.
Yeah, I feel like that's not what would happen. But again, you know, everybody has their own thoughts of how they would communicate. But they essentially like project these symbols and can make symbols with things that they find in the ocean. But they like project these symbols onto their mantle, which that would then mean that either they first have seen these symbols. Like you can't just make something up in your brain. Like it can't, I don't know. I feel like you're not just... I feel like if you can't, like, if a lot of times if you're envisioning in your brain, you can't figure out how to project it or, like, display it. So I don't know how they would do that. And that's how they communicate with each other, of just, like, putting a symbol on their mantle. And the physical book did show different symbols that they were projecting, but then they would take different things that they find in the sea, whether that's, like, glass bottles and whatnot, or just a human skull, because spoiler alert, even more, they're murdering octopuses.
Yeah, they took a seashell and killed one guy.
Yeah, and like shanked him. Which,
and then
yay.
And
fun.
Then what? After that, they didn't kill anybody until the end.
Until the end, yeah.
But I mean,
which
so
honestly, yeah.
Well, my thing about it is one thing I do want to say is, I would love to read that book that she's referencing at the beginning of the chapter,
which is her own book.
Yeah, that sounded super interesting, but of course it was fiction.
Yeah,
so it's not real.
Yeah.
It's just something that they wrote for the book, but it sounded really interesting based on her research with what was it, cuttlefish?
Yes,
but I do think one thing is interesting though about the octopus and how like they have their language is within those symbols that you're saying, based on the fact that earlier in the novel they talk about how, you know, normally octopus wouldn't have a shared language because they don't live close to one another. Yeah. You know, they die while taking care of the eggs because they're not eating.
Yeah.
And, you know, at that point they have created a language now. At some point it was mentioned that, you know, they haven't created their own language because they don't have that capacity to be close to one another.
Yes, they normally, like in the wild, I mean, I'm not an expert on octopus and cephalopods, but Normally in the wild, like, they come together to mate and then they leave and they kind of reign over one specific territory, and then, you know, females will die after they lay eggs, but I think they said in the book they won't eat because they're like protecting their eggs, but it's not that they won't eat, it's just normally where they lay eggs isn't always in the best spot, so it's fish aren't like swimming by, so they're not getting as much.
They're trying to protect their
prey.
eggs.
They're trying to protect. Yeah, they're trying to protect their eggs. So it's like, it's not that they're starving themselves to death. It's just that food is more scarce and hard to come by.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they talk about that, but the fact that then they're on this protected reserve, or however it's called, they're on this protected reserve where shipping boats, like the slave ship, can't fish in that area.
Yeah.
Because they have all kinds of artillery to
At
stop
least,
them.
You know, we only learn about this specific archipelago in Kondao. I don't know. I believe they say that there's other ones, but I don't know if the other ones are protected. They have this military military person who I couldn't even announce their name. She has like AI flying robots that, like, as soon as something comes in like their territory, they immediately go after, they immediately kill, they eliminate whatever has come in to their bubble, essentially, which is like, oh, interesting. And it's like everything's notified. She knows right away. Drones go over, and I'm just like, oh. And I like the first day that like Ha was there, or within like the first few days, there was like a ship that did come through, and they immediately like crashed everything, done.
Yeah.
And they were just like, oh, and didn't the octopuses like.
So there was a sunken ship from, I guess, previous years that the octopus had taken over and now created their own like
colony.
Living situation. Yeah. So they were all living in close quarters to one another now, whereas before they were living quite separately.
Yeah.
So it's a good thought to have of like, well, now that they're living close together, they've created their own language and their own culture, essentially, because, you know, as language develops, you get your own culture. And they're passing on these, I'm sure, stories about the humans.
Yes.
Because they've got skulls in there. But they go into the shipwreck and, oh no, the diver. There were 2 people that got killed in the beginning, like a prequel.
No, it was just the one, because
the diver and then the guy that was on the beach.
Oh.
The diver had all of his equipment dragged off of him when he went to go into the ship at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And then he was on the beach with somebody else, and that other person got killed.
Really?
With the seashell, yeah.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah.
That was the one with the seashell. So, what are your thoughts on Ephraim?
So, Ephraim is the AI robot person. Them. They go by they, them. That is on the archipelago of Kondao.
So, he was created by D'Anima?
By the doctor who is behind, or by the doctor scientist who's behind D'Anima. He was created by him. I think Ephraim is interesting. I don't know if, again, I don't know how far in the future, but like, I feel like if that were to happen now, people would go crazy. I don't know.
In what way?
Badly. I don't know. I think people would really either be scared. I think it depends on who you're asking and where they live. You know, we live in such a scary time right now, so.
Well, and I think that specifically what you're saying really ties into the whole capitalism part of this book, where we could create robots and they could do the job for us, but then they ended up having to get slaves again to further fish the ocean for what little we probably have left at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, like the slave ship, they were essentially like tracking where the fish were going.
Yeah.
And they essentially, like, as they brought them in, the humans, they just essentially sorted fish and whatnot, and like then they were given like a fish protein or whatnot and rations. And I think Ephraim is an interesting character. I really liked his development. You know, at first he's more of like this very statued robot. And he meets Ha, and they start talking, and, you know, Ha presents him with a macaroon, a nice present, and he's like, wow, nobody's ever given me a present. And then, they're
Not like he can eat it.
not that he can eat it, no, but he can acknowledge it and he can stare at it, which he says he does until the other person,
Military
the
person.
military personnel, she eats it eventually.
That's so rude.
But I know, but I think he has a good character development. At the end, you are kind of maybe feeling more bad towards him. His creator ends up dying from the octopuses that are like, we're gonna kill you, this person.
I mean, she was outside.
She was outside.
It's almost like she was asking for it.
She was on the beach near
Yeah.
their house.
Yeah.
You know what? We're gonna kill her.
Well, and one thing too about Kundao and how it's turned into this reserve, and then they have those
The monk
the monk drone
AIs
things. Yeah, so like they
that
have
aren't advanced as Ephraim.
Yeah, but they have some sort of
They have the memories of past monks
That's what it
embedded
is.
in them, but they're not as advanced as Ephraim is.
It gave me the impression of the theme of just like the earth reclaiming what we have ruined.
Yeah.
Because, we've taken this beautiful island that used to be a tourist trap and they kind of just let it go.
Mm-hmm.
While they were using the hotel
Mm-hmm.
for this whole situation with Ephraim and Ha
Mm-hmm.
and studying the octopus. But it just kind of had that impression of just like, well, it's all run down because
Yeah.
they just kind of let it go back to nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the hotel was all run down and everything, so.
But I felt like with Ephraim too, I mean, I'm going to quote one of my favorite books, but I felt like they were so preoccupied with whether or not they could do it, they didn't stop to think whether or not they should. Because
That's true.
he is essentially a human in mind,
Mm-hmm.
but a robot in every other way. And he doesn't, in the beginning, you think that maybe he doesn't have the same emotions that maybe everybody else does.
Mm.
But then towards the end, once you see him and Ha talking and opening up,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of get more of that other side of him and how he really felt when the doctor that's in charge of Deanima, like, kind of talked about
That
him.
made him, yeah.
And she did all of these press conferences and she really just like talked down about him and how he only has so much that he can comprehend.
Mm-hmm.
And
that he thinks the earth is flat. That's more of a reference, but like,
oh, I don't remember that part.
yeah, she was saying that like they only think the earth is flat, they don't think that it's round, and like their brain hasn't developed enough, or like their brain, I say, like whatever their programming hasn't developed enough that we're like, they know that the earth is round and they think the earth is flat.
The robots do?
Yeah.
Why did I not remember that?
Yeah.
Anyway, I felt pretty indifferent towards him
Mm-hmm.
most of the story. At some points, I did kind of feel bad for him just because, he started to question whether or not he was making the right decision.
Yeah.
And that does kind of fall into, I guess, more of a human trait. Because a robot's not going to second guess the right decision.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It makes sense.
But then Ha. So how do you feel about Ha and her character development?
I think I'm more indifferent to Ha.
Okay.
I did like her. Did I like her character development? I don't know. I kind of just felt bad for her most of the time. Like, she created this AI generated computer model that like she lives with, essentially. What is it, Cameron? And, she's essentially just like by herself living, at the end of the movie. It's actually kind of sad when you.
It's not a movie.
It's actually kind of sad at the end of the book. She's talking about how, like, the doctor and the whole company was like, you're going to, we're going to kill you if you try to leave or you try to tell people about what's happening here. And she's trying to, like, ask her AI companion, like, oh, like, call the police. And he was like, oh, I don't know where the phone is. And I was like, no, it's just because you literally aren't a real person and you literally can't do anything.
Well, for half a second, I did think it was weaponized incompetence. And I was like, really? And then I was like, oh, there's no way he's real.
No, I know. I kind of immediately was like, oh, this is like, that's not real. Because they told her, don't let anybody know where you're going. Leave everybody behind. Bring a suitcase. And she did exactly what they wanted. And it's like, they're never going to.
She didn't tell anybody where she was
exactly.
going.
Yeah, she told nobody knew anything.
These are all of the major rules of being a woman that she just like completely broke.
Yeah, exactly. You tell everybody you
share your location.
Exactly. Well, who knows if we know what technology is like in the future. Obviously, it's big enough to make people, but like, or make a human robot, but do they have cell phones? You know, she has that, like, it's like a tablet thing that she uses for,
I mean, yeah, I think
to
they
project
do. They
that,
have drones that are flies.
That's true. That killed somebody.
Yeah, apparently. I mean, so I thought Ha's character development was pretty interesting because she goes from being very selfish about her research and her work and thinking that kind of on her high horse of like, well, I'm a researcher, I'm doing all of these things for the greater good. But then when her previous experiment or her previous research with the cuttlefish got endangered by, was it the native people?
Or pirates?
Pirates?
No. Pirates?
Something happened, and then literally all of her test subjects were dead.
Yeah.
All of her animals got killed. And then I think she's trying to learn from that mistake, and she really took it to heart. So going into this, I think she was still a little bit of that first person.
Yeah.
But towards the end, and I think getting closer to Ephraim and him and her talking, especially when they're locked in the safe room.
Yeah.
I think you really see more of her development then.
Yeah. I honestly just wish they wrote more about the octopuses.
I feel like the summary was pretty deceiving on what it was going to be about, because I feel like we really learned extensively about the AI and the drones and the robots and whatnot that they have going on in this, as opposed to kind of the octopus was a little bit of a second.
Yeah, it says like, oh, you know, they discover this intelligent life form with its own language and culture, but like we only really see like a glimpse into it. You know, we don't, you know,
and they tried to communicate with them, and they did a little bit, but then at the end they ended up, I mean, the octopus went full on guerrilla warfare.
Yeah, and we're like, we're gonna kill some people.
Then they did.
And they did. They killed a few people.
They were taking up tiles from the pool area and flinging them through the windows.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Can you imagine?
They also talked about like how the octopus would be like just like walking on land like completely at the tip of its like legs. And I'm like, first of all, no, it literally would just like collapse in on itself. Like there's no bone structure other than their beak that's in the middle of like their entire body.
So I'm like, no bones.
It got no bones. Like, you know, it's like Olaf. Oh, look, I've been impaled. I have no bones. And I'm like, okay, this actually wouldn't work. Like they would just be like, it would literally be what you would think an octopus would look like out of the water. It would just be like flat on the ground, like moving. You know, it's not like they're not going to be standing. And they were like 5 feet octopus. Like they were tall.
Oh, I did not get that.
Yeah, they were like tall, like as humans. Like they were as tall as humans. Some of them, the big, like the older ones.
I did not get that.
And I'm just like, man, that's a large octopus.
That's a tall drink of water.
No, I'm like, that's just a tall or a large animal. Like,
no, I can't imagine. I mean, the giant squids.
Yeah.
That scares me.
And like, those are in water. Like, I could see it looking like that in water, but I'm just like,
yeah, I can't imagine a boneless creature standing on its legs.
Exactly.
Like that. And then walking around and then shanking somebody.
Yeah. I will say, probably one of my favorite, like, they did very well with, or, you know, he did very well talking about and, like, describing the things. So, imagery came into a lot of this. I feel like I could, like, really picture what he was trying to show. And when the boat, or when they first tried to make contact with the octopuses, and they had that submersive little diving thing, and they were watching on the screen, one of my favorite scenes, I guess, in the book, or, you know, chapters, areas of the book, was like that one octopus was singing with like the littler baby, and then they all started joining in. It was just a really pretty wholesome like family, I guess, thing to watch. And I feel like that is like seeing your favorite animal out in like the wild, you know, whether that be an exotic animal or whatnot. But like Ha was sitting there watching like her whole research come true of like, wow, these animals are like more intelligent than we thought. And it's like, I feel like it's like seeing your like most amazing animal favorite species out in like their natural habitat.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty cool to see something like that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it then destroys said submersible.
Yes.
Holds on to the pieces and then, like, gives it back to him later.
Yeah.
In
a symbol that
pieces.
says, stay away.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, you know, you give and take on, on...
Yeah.
But then they got smart and they made it invisible. They somehow made the submersible invisible so that they were able to stay down there longer and see them. But then at some point, another one still saw it.
Or maybe they fell, or they ran into it, or something. Something
like
happened.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rustum?
Yeah.
Rustum? Is that his name?
Yeah, I don't really have many notes on him, and, like, as I was taking notes.
I don't either. His character was pretty unremarkable to me.
Yes.
However, the fact that he was hired to break into Ephraim's mind in the backdoor, what is it?
Code, backdoor,
backdoor like
area.
An opening that they leave for themselves in order to either encode something or change Ephraim's behavior in some way. It's kind of just like a... What's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know.
It's not like a cheat code, but it's like a failsafe almost, I guess, of a way to get
in the
into
event that,
his
like,
mind.
he were,
yeah. And he ended up cutting it off because he was paid to get in there. And what was he supposed to do?
So he was paid to get in there, I think. I don't know exactly what he was paid to do. I know he was just paid to get into Ephraim's mind, but then he realized what Ephraim was either, like, seeing, thinking, going through, researching, and he was like, no, I can't do that to this mind, per se.
Right, because they were all, essentially, all of the people that were there were kind of exiled onto this island.
Yeah.
And if any of them tried to leave, they would be killed.
Yeah.
And that includes Ephraim. So he gets into his mind, and he actually has a conversation with him.
Towards the end, well, he has a conversation at the beginning, but it tells us at the end that they've had this conversation.
Yeah, when him and Ha are locked in the safe room because the octopus are flinging tiles through the building.
Yeah, so Rustum and Ephraim have this conversation of being and just like, hey, I was able to get into your mind through this back door. Like, you know, they have this like wholesome conversation, and then he ends up saying like, I'm going to delete this back door. Nobody else will be able to ever like control you. You'll be able to be you for here on out. And that's the day that Ha arrives on the island. So it does come back like full circle.
Doesn't it talk about, though, that he, like, if somebody were to get into his mind and start making decisions and making him do things that he wouldn't know?
Yes.
See, that's the scary part.
That he could have been like, you have no idea what he's been doing. And, like, as soon as he meets Ha, like, that's the day that Rustum has essentially cut off that back door. So, like, since the day that he met Ha on that island, all of those decisions were their own.
And I will say, I do think Ephraim had the biggest character development.
Yeah, he went from kind of just being like basic robot to someone with emotions and thought-provoking things that I can't think of the word of. Thought-provoking sentences,
Okay, but how do you feel about the little like 0.5 things where the people have their companions that are bad at relationships and they want to learn how to be better? How do you feel about that?
Honestly, I don't even remember.
You don't remember? The guy that...
Rustum had one.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, the girl he was seeing.
The girl he was seeing. He was seeing someone. Yes.
Then she had it.
And she had it. Yeah, that was weird.
I thought it was weird too.
Yeah.
I think it's more for people who want to be in I think they described it as people who want to be in a relationship, but they're bad at it. And they're not good at, like, I guess, interacting, socializing. I'm not really sure.
This is what we're doing on our day. We're making a podcast.
Instead of what?
Instead of, like, going out and meeting people.
Gross.
I know.
Well, so I thought it was super weird because at some point you're going to get emotionally attached to this thing, which Ha did because she had one.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what's his
Cameron.
Face? Yeah. That's what he was. And then she ended up...
He wasn't like a real person though either.
Well, neither are these other things.
That's true. I think I honestly like skipped a lot of him because like Rustum, like not that I skipped over it, but I feel like I like was listening to him, but I wasn't really paying attention, if that makes sense. Because like there were small little...
Well, half the time I didn't know that was who we were talking about.
Yes, and then I'll be like, oh, and then it's like we're over and where he was, isn't he in like Indonesia and everybody else was in? And I was like, what is happening?
I think so. Yeah, that one was difficult because I never could figure out who he was until the very end.
Yeah, then I'm like, Oh, okay.
Yeah, and even then, the very end got a little dicey for me.
Yeah,
'cause
you were like, did he die? And
Yeah, I
was
didn't
like-
really. I thought he died.
I think his friend died. I don't know. He could have died and we just don't know. But the bug that pushed the bug robot that pushed his friend, companion, whatever, over the side of the hotel that he was staying at, that died with the friend.
Mm.
So we don't know if Rustum actually died or if he lives.
Yeah, maybe under the radar. 'Cause
Yeah.
It sounds like they were after him.
Yeah.
I think that was all of my notes on it. I didn't do a very good job of keeping notes on this one. So I know we kind of skipped around a lot on the plot and the story and everything.
Yeah.
So I feel like our next few books are going to be better because I
Hopefully.
think we can go better along the timeline. Because I really just have a bunch of notes in front of me that I've just kind of been working off of.
Yeah, I feel like I listened while I was reading it. I wasn't taking notes. While I was listening, I took notes better for myself. I also just wrote down like some of the other things of like for myself, like, oh, they're in the Indian Western Pacific Ocean where like dugongs were found. So then we realized that they're like in Vietnam and whatnot. So I was just making notes for myself of things like that. And like, oh, octopus is collecting coconuts. Like that was really cute. I remember reading that, but like that's also true. So
I didn't write any of that down. Honestly, I started taking notes way too late while listening to the book, so I should have done better. And hopefully next time I will, because my notes app is filling quickly.
Yeah, I have a notebook that I'm putting in what we've listed or the books that we're going to read and go from there. But
well, hopefully next book will be a little bit more chronological, especially if you didn't like how we skipped around a lot. And I feel like there was a lot we still didn't cover.
Oh, so much.
In this book, even
so
though
much,
it's not
but
that
also,
big.
It's not that big. What was it, 450 pages, which isn't a lot.
I don't know. I think it was only like 13 hours.
No, I think it was 11.
Was it 11?
11, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it wasn't that long. It was a short read.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like it still had a lot. So if you're interested in it and you liked what we talked about, even though we didn't give it too many stars, 2 out of 5 for both of us. But if you liked it, definitely check it out.
I will say it gets better.
I mean, it won an award.
It won an award. But I feel like it does get better the more you go into it. I feel like you really have to get through like the first half.
Well, I feel like
once
you realize that it skips around a lot of point of views, I feel like
reading the book itself would be easier because then you can immediately know.
Potentially. Or you could skip ahead a little bit and then go back. I do feel like, though, once you know that the point of view jumps around a lot, it's easier to follow.
Yeah.
It wasn't terrible. It had some really good themes, I think, and, within the capitalism and, what we've done to the earth at this point.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of really good messages in it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this was brought up the other day, but I thought it was really interesting that I do think that the way that this book was written, it would be really easy to adapt it to the screen.
I feel like for me it'd just be they would have to leave some stuff out, but like I don't know, I think it'd just be boring to watch.
I think it would be easier to follow, and I think the message would be more impactful if it was a TV show, TV series, where each chapter is an episode or whatever. I think it would be great because it is very descriptive.
It is.
And I feel like you really are kind of being, you see it as you're reading it.
Yeah.
So I think they did a really good job with the imagery and everything.
Yeah, that was really good.
Okay. Well,
if you liked this, come back. If you didn't, come back.
Where can they find us?
You can find us on Instagram at The Call Slip, or send us an email if there's a book you want us to read and give us some more information about. And yeah.
All right. See you next time.
Bye.